All right, so I'm not going to read long. I'm going to read about 10 minutes at the most. You've all been very patient, and I appreciate the fact that a few of you have hung out. Um, I'm the author of 12 books of poems, a novel, The Tin Angel, a memoir, My Brother's Madness. If you go on Amazon, you can get a list of the books I've written. I'm going to read tonight from two volumes, two collections. I'm going to open with two poems from a collection called New Orleans Variations and Paris Ouroboros from Dos Madres Press. You know that Mardi Gras in New Orleans happened early this year. It's actually happening now or just finishing now. But every year, pretty much, I go down to New Orleans for 2, 3 weeks in the winter. I have friends there, and I spend time with them in the French Quarter, and I use that time to write. I try to avoid Mardi Gras because there's too much going on, and I actually go down to be quiet. One year I went down, and I happened to time it badly. I got there at the beginning of Mardi Gras, and my host and hostess were waiting for me, and they informed me that part of the price of admission this year was my participation in Mardi Gras. So this is a poem that is based on my experience of participating in Mardi Gras. It's called Hello from Nola. I dress up for Mardi Gras in a costume provided by my hostess, described on the package as Jesus, one size fits all, containing a long white gown, a red sash, a wild wig of auburn curls down to my shoulders, and a beard I can't secure to my ears, which are too small, must finally pin to my soft crown of thorns. When I appear, my hostess says, "You look more like a rabbi." I point out that many called him this, which is what he probably was. Another in our group observes, "He looks more like Moses." On our way through the French Quarter to a party at Jackson Square, La Petite Theatre, oldest community theater in the U.S., celebrants ask for my blessing, attempt to kiss the hem of my skirt. I confess relief when a beefy guy in a New Orleans Saints football jersey jumps in front of me screaming, "Hail Bacchus," obviously mistaking my crown of thorns for grape leaves. Part 2, Fat Tuesday. We start out early to march with the insurgent order of Saint Cecilia, patron saint of musicians, who sang to God as she was crucified and beheaded 3 times. Recently split from the trendy order of St. Anne, mother of the Virgin and patron of minors, we gather in the Marinier, meet the band and revelers who want to know if I am Moses or Jesus. I tell them that my costume, designed in Brooklyn by a rabbi, includes the robe and sash of the Galilean, but the wild hair and beard of one who's been to the mountain but comes today without tablets or parables, simply to dance in the second line behind the trombone. Sor Juana wearing her escudo, and on my left a fox in a white tux on my right. We stop for drinks at Feelings, a bar on Franklin, where a pig with wings corners me to ask, "Who dat?" I reply that I'm her savior, recently off the rack, then move on to the tune of Little Liza Jane until I cross Elysian fields and come face to face with another dancing Jesus. We embrace, bless each other, then pause to use the porta potties on Esplanade before parading through the quarter down Royal Street to confront evangelicals in Jackson Square protesting this pagan rite. Confusion reigns as they stare at me in a way I recognize as Jesus or Moses. Another band comes up behind us. I can't decide if I'm dancing first or second line, to which a fox in a tux responds, both. Summing up all there is to say about dancing between two bands, we stream into Canal Street, the promised land for one so robed and bearded in the spirit of Saint Cecilia, singing when the saints come marching in, until a diva in gold lame sneezes, and I stop to say, God bless you, but it comes out, Gesundheit. All right, that's that. Next poem I'm going to read is called Whistler's Blue, a nocturne. If any of you have ever seen Whistler's paintings, his nocturnes, the blues are quite wonderful and quite deep. Whistler's Blue, a nocturne. If a man appears alone on a bridge on a snowy evening, walking toward a series of lights in a row of windows, he doesn't necessarily have a future or a past. He is simply a point on a grid, part of a composition that tells us what it is, while implying it is more than it says. We follow him into the night because of the blue. We want to know from whence he's come and where he's going, because the blue envelops everything but is thin as air, because it's everywhere, like the nerves of an acrobat in pain, and we can hear it asking us to shed our skins and follow. I'm going to read a couple of poems from a volume, a collection called Divine Madness. And it's about divine madness and the people who are touched by it and what it is. The idea is to throw out a net of words to catch the poem, a net such as Vulcan makes at the ocean's depths in a fiery cave, a net of fire and water forged by one cast out, cuckold of Venus, lame joke of the gods, whose hairy blacksmith hands can make a net such as Neptune uses to hold the waves, a net of words arching back on itself to contain an exploded universe, a net of light cast into a galaxy of dancing stars, choreography of answers in a dark chamber where the soul is revealed as a net of questions in a net of breath. I guess to understand that poem you have to know that Hephaestus, or Vulcan, the lover of Venus or Aphrodite, he's the god of Olympus. He's the artist, the poet, but he's misshapen. He has a club foot. He's not perfect like the other gods. And so Venus is unfaithful to him with Mars. And one day he makes a net to catch them while they're in the act, and he does, and he catches them in flagranti, and he takes the net, and he goes to Zeus, and he says, look at what I've caught. Look how they've betrayed me. And Zeus, instead of punishing them, kicks out Hephaestus, kicks out Vulcan, throws him out, and he falls into the bottom of the sea, into Poseidon's realm, which is really the realm of the artist, really the realm of the poet, really the realm of the unconscious. He sinks to the bottom, and he creates a studio in a cave at the bottom of the sea, where he fashions all the great artifacts of the classical world. That's, in essence, the story of the artist as it comes down from that mythology. Next poem focuses on Tom Paine, who was an extraordinary character. He really galvanized a revolution. He was afterward disparaged because he wrote a book called The Age of Reason, which talked about institutional religions as being barbaric. He went over to Paris to help the French Revolution, and they threw him in the Bastille. Jefferson had to come over, Franklin had to come over and bail him out. But when he came back, nobody would talk to him because of this book. So he was isolated on his farm in New Rochelle. He drew designs for the first great expansion bridge, which was never made. And he wasn't admitted after death to a sanctified graveyard because of his blasphemy. He was buried near the farm. Later, some people came and took the body up, exhumed him to bury him in England, but on the way the body got lost. Nobody knows where Tom Paine's body is. Citizen Tom Paine, from a line of corset makers, apprenticed to corset makers, appears out of nowhere to change our hearts. His tongue erupting with volcanic dreams seeds our revolution, after which we deny his age of reason, call him blasphemous. Not even Jefferson would receive him. Alone, at his farm in New Rochelle, he designed suspension bridges, the first of their kind, never to be built. Dies despised, refused consecrated ground, his final resting place unknown. We never know what to do with one who appears out of nowhere to change our hearts, but send him into exile on a raft of snakes or into the night sky. One who appears from nowhere to guide us through that wilderness in which we meet ourselves in search of ourselves, in search of one born from the rubble of our assumptions, tongue erupting with volcanic dreams, to write his name in lava plumes, sharper than a bayonet, his nails at the flesh of our politics. Another figure touched by divine madness. Leonard Bernstein slows the tempo of Beethoven's Seventh as if unwilling to let go. At 70, eyes closed, he hears music beneath the music, the way it plays him, its theme of power in decline, Narcissus sinking past his own reflection to face a judge who asks, what is the penalty for a life buried at its boiling point? He thinks there are still days when things fit, moments when randomness is revealed as harmony, and there's no such thing as accident, only effortless composition, where the music beneath the music becomes a fanfare for stolen fire, the darkness of a holocaust, the silent cries of children etched in aging faces, his own extinction, the symphony unwritten as if it were still in his power to write it. We find or lose our minds by indirection. Heart-sore Van Gogh chewed so much foxglove, his world turned yellow, painted it that way, blood loaded with digitalis. Thus the voices of the gods make us ciphers for what cannot be deciphered. Who is to say why we turn toward or away from what we love most, as if in answer to an unspoken question? Interesting to note that Van Gogh did chew digitalis for his heart, kept his heart rate down. And one of the effects of digitalis, foxglove, is to create this sense of yellow, to bring up the yellows and things. All right, this is the last poem. It's called Meanwhile. Meanwhile is what happens while we are focused elsewhere, on what seems of greater importance. Meanwhile happens off stage, the dying neighbor whose passing goes unnoticed, except for the black crepe on her window. Meanwhile, we put on our shoes, pay the phone bill, make or withdraw from love. Meanwhile, leaves are falling in Syracuse. A man like your father drinks ouzo on the Plaka. Meanwhile, surrounds us, connecting what seems disparate, the broad cast of our lives in the tiniest particle of protein, for whose sake we labor, like Penelope undoing what she has done to accommodate that meanwhile in unbounded longing, the abolition of loneliness, the slow peeling away of personal ambition that shadows our footsteps until there's no ground under us except what happens meanwhile. Thank you.